NGO on a completely unrelated project. The project that I worked on was a to-be profitable social enterprise venture that they were going to launch to make and distribute and sell sanitary pads for the kind of top of the base of the pyramid. Are you all familiar with the term base of the pyramid? It refers to, in developing countries, kind of the poorest set of consumers. And so the idea is like, the income distribution in the country's pyramid. And the base are the people with not so much spending discretionary income, but collective spending power. So there's been some ink spilled recently about the promise and potential that this market as a whole might hold. So I'm going to use that term a little bit, but really it refers to poor consumers that have some money to spend. So the problem that this NGO was trying to solve, specifically for this project we worked on, was that due to lack of access, due to lack of means, many girls lose days of school because they don't have sanitary pads. So when they have their periods, they just do not go to school. And so that 1 week out of a month accumulates and girls fall farther and farther behind, and with other demands on their time, like taking care of younger siblings or work at home, it's another factor that contributes to girls falling out of school, falling behind in school, and all of the human development implications that are linked to that. The same is true for grown women who lose work days, etc. So the existing sanitary pads on marketing in Nairobi are all like Chinese imports, and they are made out of like hyper-absorbent polymers that are all sorts of like evil chemicals, according to the woman running this NGO. And so her idea is to create eco-friendly and affordable sanitary pads made out of a byproduct of sugarcane production, or sugarcane processing, called bagasse. So she actually came here and in a room not too far from here, gave a presentation to us, and she wanted to engage WIBP to help develop a go-to-market strategy for these products. So the challenge was to figure out how she was going to take this idea and get it on the market. What complicated that task for us was that some of the pre-go-to-market steps were less clear. So let me tell you a little bit, I'll tell you more about that in a moment, but let me tell you a little bit about our team. I had by WIBP standards, larger team. I had 3 other people and myself, and had travel plans worked out better. I might have had as many as 5 than myself. We had 2 weeks, and we decided to focus on figuring out what the distribution chain was for the current for currently available sanitary pad products and other consumer packaged goods that reach the bottom of the pyramid. So we met with a bunch of these companies. We told them the truth that we were Wharton students doing a research project and interested in consumer packaged goods that reach the bottom of the pyramid on explicit request by this NGO to not reveal her secret plan, which was like kind of adorable because like I don't think that any of these enormous companies and medium-sized companies were really going to upend her, but we respected her request. So we met with these companies, and we, with each one, tried to break down to the extent, to the most granular level possible, the distribution channel. So from other sanitary pad producers or importers to cooking oil companies, we would meet with them and ask, what is your supply chain? What is your distribution channel? What's your relationship with your distributors and wholesalers and retailers, and how do you reach the base of the pyramid? And so we learned about all of the strategies that they use all along the line. We got a pretty good picture of the markups that are taken at each point. So to some extent, this was kind of like a normal marketing case. But it was complicated by the fact that it turned out that the social entrepreneur didn't really know if she was going to be importing or manufacturing locally. And if she was going to be manufacturing locally, it wasn't exactly clear what the pattern would look like. And all of these things ultimately impacted where they would be sold and how. So one of the things that were complicated here was that it wasn't just going in and doing a well-defined assignment. We had an a priori understanding of her needs, but that became more nuanced and more complicated as time went on. So I think the takeaway from this experience is to be as attuned as possible to what the needs, what the problem is that you're really trying to solve, but also to resist getting all the way to the weeds, just try and solve every problem associated with the task that you've been given. And one of the drawbacks of that is wrestling with the discomfort that the value chain, distribution channel outline and presentation that report that we left her with may ultimately not be a critical piece of the enterprise that she ends up launching. But that was what we needed. That was a necessary focus for us to stay within scope. So the project was interesting. We learned a lot. We met with about a dozen total parties, which was a function of having 4 people to do the work, which was good. And I think we were successful in getting a picture of the consumer packaged goods market reaching the base of the pyramid in Nairobi. To the earlier question about impact evaluation, this is an area where we came in at so early a stage with this NGO that we have to be comfortable with the uncertainty and the possibility that this may end up on kind of the cutting room floor of the eventual documentary about this. So I can go on, but I'd be happy to take any questions. And yeah.
How much information were you able to access before you went?
Very good question. So that was another complication that I wrote down here and to talk about. And this brings me back to working style differences. So the people on my team were some prior consultants. I was a development person, a former lawyer, and an engineer on my team, and all coordinating type A and everything. And the woman that we were working with was like, oh, she would portray the work that she'd done in such a way sometimes we thought, oh, you've done so much. Okay, well, really, we're just like, checking the last box. And then we get on the ground and, oh, well, actually that information is like 2 years old. And well, this has kind of been thrown into question because of this other discovery we made. Or well, we did a focus group and it turns out that thing isn't true. So getting an information inventory was not trivial. And never became clear that we had the full set of information. So another uncertainty that we had to kind of live with was this work that we're doing right now, this meeting that we're sweating through, may be redundant or completely irrelevant, but we won't know yet, and it will take more time than the meeting will to figure out the answer. So I think that's just a reality of working with small organizations that have one person as the institutional memory for a given project, and it's just kind of one of the hazards of the job. So you asked me how we went around about getting information. We had a business plan from them before we left. That was lots of things were still kind of thrown into question. They had engaged a social investment matchmaking organization that brought social and impact investors to promising social enterprises. And so there had been some work done by the 2 organizations in partnership to present to investors. So that was kind of good and spoke our type A language. But beyond that, we had kind of this. And I guess the other thing to realize about NGOs, and especially small ones, is that sometimes due to lack of means or momentum, these projects can get started and then kind of hover in the ether of one person's agenda. So some of the work that had been done was 5 years old, and we just kind of had to decide which parts were still valid and decide which parts to reinvestigate. So some of the information we had was you know, not too timely or useful. Anyway, I can answer more questions offline or in small groups.
Thank you. All right, so now what we're going to do is we have a couple key questions to consider. And these are kind of 6 things that we're hoping each of the groups will think about in regards to your own projects. And make sure you sort of kick these around before you leave, and hopefully we can use some of this time today for you guys to sit together and think through these issues with regards to your own project that's about to head out. So from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, you guys haven't had a ton of time to work through these types of things with your teams, correct? Okay. So what we'd love to do is I'll run through these, answer any questions you have on them, and then if we can sort of think about how to divide the room such that you're working with your team or the team that's doing something similar to what you'll be doing. And then we have about 15 or 20 minutes to do that, and then we'll come together and answer questions, wrap up from there. So the 6 things we